Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Almost Dropouts podcast. I'm your host, Daivik, and today I have Sefunmi and Helen with me. So, starting out with Sefunmi, he's an ECE grad at the from the University of Waterloo, fellow ECE, and he has previously worked at Apple, Microsoft, Ecobee, and Copper. And yeah, I remember when I was first starting off as an undergrad before I got into LinkedIn, podcasting, all of that type of stuff. I was looking into internships, and I stumbled onto his article about how he got his internship at Microsoft and Apple. So it's a fun little tidbit there. But that was a great article, which I can link. But yeah, that's sort of how I got to know Sefunmi. And then, yeah, we have Helen, who's on the podcast as well. And so she's a science and business honors grad from U Waterloo and has previously worked at Microsoft and Zynga. And so, yeah, the both of them have come together to start join.collab.io and are now working on that full time. So thank you so much, guys, for coming onto the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Yeah, super excited to just chat about Shifumi and I's history, Co.Lab, and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Super excited to
Yeah,
be here. And it's such an interesting fact. I know you told me about that before, like that article. So, yes, wow, it seems like such a long time ago. But yeah, thanks for reading it. And yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks for putting it out. It was very helpful, and it definitely helped me and get some of the internships I wanted later on. So a lot of that credit goes to the article. So I really appreciate that. But all right, let's get started. So I know I briefly mentioned joincollab.io, and you guys are working on that. So let's just start from an overview point of view. What is Join Collab?
So yeah, again, CoLab, we are an education program where we actually help junior product managers, designers, as well as developers get relevant work experience that they need to sort of break into the industry and land their dream roles. So again, if you really take a step back and think about it, tech is all about building products, right? But when you go to school and
Mm-hmm.
you learn how to code, et cetera, you're really learning one skill, which is a super useful skill to use within the tech space. But you're not really learning, hey, how do you actually build products and teams? How do you leverage those skills and really apply them? But at the same time, I mean,
Right.
you were also looking for an internship. I'm sure you understand, like, wow, okay, if you don't have relevant experience, it's just extremely hard to like get the job. But then you need the job to get the relevant experience. So
Right.
there's this just sort of like catch 22 in the job seeking process. And so that's why with CoLab, we're really trying to bridge that gap and give people, hey, the
Mm-hmm.
experience that employers are ultimately looking for. Like, can you build products in a team? Do you know how to collaborate with one
Mm-hmm.
another? Do you know how to leverage each other's expertise to really get the job done? And so that's really what drew us to here as well. I'll let Shifumi speak for himself, but just for me, again, I came from an earth science background. Getting into the industry was extremely tough because I faced those same type of, you don't have the right experience for us, and there just really wasn't any good opportunity for me to learn that. And so yeah, we just wanted to
Mm-hmm.
create this space and this chance where people can really build and can do all the things they would do on the job, and learn that in a low stakes environment, and then ultimately replicate that and just show their capability.
Yeah, and yeah, just to add to
Mm-hmm.
that, one of the ways that I was able to even land my internships, I mean, I know you read it in the article, but for everyone else, the first time I started getting attention from employers was after I built a product, right? I didn't build anything fancy. It wasn't like this like full-fledged amazing app. It was just like a time management app for students. And building that and showing that to employers, they felt that wow, this is like great. You've worked on something and you worked in a team. Even though I spent time just talking about how I misunderstood the problem, I didn't necessarily know how to work in an agile way, but essentially I still figured it out. I was able to get from 0 to 1. So that experience is
Mm-hmm.
valuable to every employer when they know that you can actually come up with something. And that's how we structured CoLab in a way that you're actually building projects and you're solving customer problems. They'll be able to do, like, participants who join CoLab will be able to like do it way better than I was able to do it. And then we feel like that can propel their careers in in in
Mm-hmm.
tech and whatever it is that they want to do, and also give them the confidence. So which is why we do what we do at CoLab.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know, especially in product management, when I first started off, I realized I want to shift from software engineering to product management. And with software engineering, it's still sort of a little easier, I guess, to get experience because you can You can do some side projects, even though when it is unstructured, that can be a little tough. So definitely, of course, there's some value. There's a great value there with Co.Lab as well. But especially in product management, I know one of the biggest things is that everyone used to ask, do you have product management experience? How else are you going to be a product manager? And it's just so funny, like you mentioned that catch 22 situation where, you need to become a product manager. You need product management experience, but to get product management experience, you need to become a product manager. And so
Exactly.
it's just really funny how you mentioned that, because that's something a big struggle I went through, and I was able to squeak by sort of just by like doing some club stuff, and during one of my internships, asked the project manager if I could help him out with some product stuff. So I was able to use that experience somewhat, but I know it was really really hard. Otherwise, I know so many people have asked me so many times, like, how do I do this, and it's really hard for me to even like give them a suitable path to that. So it's really great to hear that that's sort of, collabs really helping out with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting because like a lot of people hack it together, but we don't want people to hack it together because again, when sometimes some people hack it and they end up at the workplace, you then have this other problem where there's this huge imposter syndrome because it's like, wow, okay, now I've gotten this like PM job, but I don't know what to do about it. I don't know how to do it effectively, and you have all these deadlines, and it's just not a great experience, even just for your mental health. So aside of the thing that we also do in collab is also building that confidence that once you even land that job, you're more than capable. You already know all the things that you need to do to actually succeed at it. So that's also another
Hmm.
important piece of instead of just like hacking it together the way that like a bunch of other people have done. I certainly feel like I hacked my way
Mhm.
in it, but when you're going through like good processes and gaining that true experience, it ultimately sets you apart and just sets you up for like enormous success.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess just out of curiosity, how do you guys approach the customer problems that they solve?
So, with regards to Collab, we actually encourage them to come up with their own problems, right? As you know, with product management and even just like generally working in tech, like you're there to solve customer problems. Like it's not just about designing something fancy, you're coding, you're working at a tech company to solve some problem in society. So we encourage them to do that in a low stakes environment whereby they go out there and try and identify valuable problems that they've seen around them and then figure out ways to solve them as a team. So we don't give them the projects. We don't say, hey, everyone in class has to have projects. We ultimately give them the tools that they can
Hmm.
use to understand if a problem is really a problem, how can they dissect a problem or understand customer motivations instead of saying, hey, everyone is going to work on the same weather app or the same to-do list app. So we find it that people are a lot more interesting. The projects are a lot more interesting that way, and people are able to be very creative, which is why, like, if you go on our website and see the projects that people create, they create chatbots, text messaging services, mobile apps, web apps, Chrome extensions, versus like any other like normal school or boot camp. Every project sort of seems the same way, just like tweaked like in a very just different way and just like a UI or whatever. So we try to
Hmm.
go from like the creative approach where we give people the agency to come up with like good problems and then go through the process of solving them while we help and support them in many ways.
Yeah, one
Hmm.
one of the
Okay,
interesting
that makes.
things to add here. Oh,
Mhm. No, sorry. Go
well,
ahead.
I'm,
Go ahead.
I'm just gonna continue finishing. But yeah, one of the interesting things to add here is that when you consider just, I mean, outside of technical education, just how education works, is that when you give sort of the power and the creativity into the hands of the students, and you provide the structure and the mentorship as they need it, but really ultimately allow them to drive their own experience. Not only are they more engaged, but there's so many other benefits to that creativity as well. When you take a look at the projects that some of our students have created, we have projects around like accessibility, about neurodiversity, about diversity in general. Like it's just super interesting the things that people will come up with when you give them that space and that support. So yeah, something super super cool.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think, um, I can relate to that from this perspective. In school, when you go into any course or when you get assigned a problem to do, I feel like, you learn a lot, that's for sure, but at the same time, I feel sort of limited because I would love to sort
Hmm.
of tackle in the ways I've learned in class. Um,
Hmm.
and so I think it's really important when people are learning, to not only give them opportunities to learn and to solve problems in a given way, but beyond that, let them take the knowledge that they have and explore
Hmm.
different ways of applying it. Because I think that's when you fully grasp different concepts, and that's when you really get to enjoy what you're learning.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah.
100%.
Hmm. And so, yeah, no, that's super interesting. And what have some challenges been of founding this? Because it's essentially a new startup. Um, so I was just wondering, like, what are some challenges you guys have been through while founding this?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, we're definitely super new. So Shifumi and I actually
Hmm.
just went full time on it about 3 months ago. And yeah, I think anytime that you're obviously dealing with individualized and personalized learning, you're always going to have challenges, because you want every single person to have a great experience, but everyone learns in different ways. And then we obviously have an additional layer on top of that, which is group work, right? Our entire program is about collaboration and sort of honing your communication skills beyond just the technical. But of course, with group work comes a whole range of like other types of issues as well. And so that's why we actually spend a long time on our entire matching algorithm, just to make sure that when we match teams, they're set to be as successful as possible, along with their mentors and all of that good stuff. And then I think the
Right.
last challenge that I would say, is really just on like me and Shifumi's parts as well, of just like learning. I think, of course, we're well versed with building products. We're getting more and more better in really improving the learning experience for our students, but there's a lot of interesting ways to learn. And we're really trying to tap into a lot of that while still, making sure that our students are going through the program, that they're successful, and we're learning alongside them. So it's just been super interesting, like super super happy to be on this journey, honestly. Or maybe I'm still in the honeymoon period. Just kidding.
Yeah, no, that's pretty funny. But yeah, no, that makes a yeah. I guess you guys being first time teachers, of course, like you've learned a bunch of stuff in different industries, but actually having to teach somebody is a whole different ball game. And especially in the in the unique ways you guys are going about it, that must be pretty challenging. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, though honestly, we're also very lucky because we have some amazing mentors, and so we're just glad to basically create the space where a lot of really talented people are interested as well, to help out and just give back to the next generation.
Hmm. Hmm. Makes sense. And I guess now that we've talked about some challenges, what have some successes been for Co.Lab?
Yeah, so ultimately, what we're trying to do is simulate what it feels like to work at a tech company, therefore providing them with the confidence and the competence that they need to be successful. So with that, we've actually seen a lot of like good things happen with our students and our participants just in a short amount of time. So for example, we have people who have gotten multiple people who have gotten job offers at like Microsoft, Amazon, General Motors, like Twilio, The Score, like so many other like Fortune 50 companies who are like out there killing it. And a lot of them, actually 100% of them mentioned how collab has played a huge role in giving them that thrust towards that successful career advancement. So it's something that we're seeing this model works because ultimately it's what people are looking for, it's what employers are looking for, that can I bring someone in and I know that they have all the things that it takes. You're not trying to like convince an employer to hire you. You're not trying to be like, you're not trying to be a diversity hire. You're actually showing that you have what it takes. And I think the confidence boost
Hmm.
is the biggest part because everyone, like 100% of people admit that they've improved in some way or form, with their confidence after being able to like go through collab and work on a cross-functional team. So we're measuring a bunch of
Right.
like different metrics to make sure that we're solving the problems that we identify and we want to focus on. So it's a great journey so far.
Yeah, and so we actually just graduated, around 60 students a few days ago. And we've
Wow.
obviously been like chatting with them to see what has changed in just the short 8 weeks of the program. Because again, CoLab isn't meant to be like this super long process. We feel like people can gain relevant experience without giving up months of their life and stuff. So we're actually just 8 weeks. We're part
Hmm.
time. But yeah, over 50% of the people who started the program 8 weeks ago looking for a job have landed a new role just during Co.Lab, like during these 8 weeks of study, which is super
Right.
super awesome, because that really is a short period of time, especially when, like, I mean, I know that the job market now is incredibly competitive. So for people to really land their first roles in tech as like product managers, software engineers, and designers, we're really proud of that as well.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I think the biggest thing is, like you mentioned, like they have experience that they can showcase. So, it's, I mean, of course, that's really important when you go into the interview. And I think the second really big thing, big thing there is that, you have those 8 months where you're dedicated to building something with this team. And I think what can happen sometimes is that you want to do something, you want to build that experience, but you can't necessarily find the personnel to build something with and the right environment to do that in. And so I think it's really interesting how in that way you guys foster both at Co.Lab, where people
Hmm.
can get people who want to do it and in that time frame, and people who are willing to put that time in.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm. And so, what do you guys think the future is for the venture?
Yeah, so ultimately we want to make sure that people, like, getting into tech is hard. Regardless of what background you come from. We want to create a world where you don't need to go to a fancy school or have this, like, amazing CS degree to contribute in the tech industry. We do think like tech needs to be a lot more diverse and needs to be a representation of the world we see around us today, because I think that's like significantly lacking. So we want to make sure our program is very accessible. Right? And if you think about like our price point and the folks that come through our program, we want to make sure that we're giving opportunities to as many people as possible. So we're not taking like the exclusive approach. We're taking the accessible approach, despite even still having like very strict acceptance rate, because we want to make sure that everyone who comes through our program is motivated to put in the work. Ultimately, we want to make sure that
Right.
anyone anywhere who has the motivation and desire to be in the tech industry and wants to like build something and wants to like start their careers. And even if you also want to upskill, we want to make sure that collab is in place for you to be able to gain all that knowledge and gain all the skills that you need to actually succeed. So that's sort of like the future that we're working towards, and making it this very accessible way for anyone anywhere to learn about how to get into tech. Because right now, in our current cohorts or the cohorts that just finished, we have people from 11 different countries joining us,
Wow.
across multiple time zones, working together to build successful projects. And also, like, we have a completion rate of about 95%, right? So 95% of people who have gone through our program since we started it in September have finished the program and had us shipped something. And you have people working across multiple time zones to do that. So it's really incredible. So we really want to continue to, build that out. We're a global program, and we're super excited to see, like all the other places that we expand to, and all the kinds of projects that people end up building.
Hmm. And do you guys want to touch on some of the projects that are being completed?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we actually, on our website you can see some of our product packs. So we like to say that when someone leaves from our program, you don't just get a certification, right? Like, you gain capabilities, and you have this product that you have actually built. But in addition to the product that you have built and is live and can be used by people, you have sort of the learnings that you gain within the team. You have sort of the referrals from your team members and all of that good stuff. So that ultimately is what we want each student to go through Co.Lab leaving with. So in terms of what
Hmm.
people have actually built, so we have, as Shifumi mentioned before, we have like this one really cool one. It's a Chrome extension. They just shipped it from this last cohort. So yeah, Chrome extension for a lot of neurodiverse people. Sometimes having like animations or gifs on websites can be really distracting. So this team, they shipped
Right.
a live Chrome extension that you can download today that actually blocks all gifs and moving animations on the page, right, with just one click. So I found, that was super interesting. We have some teams that are working with local nonprofits to create like their internal tools or like website or a front facing type of thing for them. And that has been sort of in the form of like mobile apps or like in the case of the internal tool, just like web apps in general. So that has been pretty cool as well. But yeah, overall, I think, yeah, we
Mhm.
had like a cool Slack bot this time around. Yeah, everyone just creates such different diverse types of products, and again, that just speaks to the beauty of these like individualized and personalized learning outcomes that we provide.
Right, right. And I think one thing you really touched on there is how you have such diverse products because you have so much diversity. And I think, just as I guess, as a little shift, I think one of the major themes of collab in general is that helping new people break into tech. And so I was just wondering how, like, where do you see the importance of having voices from a diverse set of background?
I think it's very critical. It's not even like oh, it's a nice to have. It's very critical for the tech industry. It's very critical for any company because if you're building products that impact, you know, millions of people, you need to have a team that is reflective of that environment or that society. You can't be designing or building for people that you do not understand and who don't bring some of those perspectives. So it's extremely critical, for any company to want to hire diverse talent, right? Which is why for us it's very critical that we train diverse folks and we train them exceptionally well. So, for example, over 70% of people who come through our program are people of color. Over 50% of our program are women. So we're very intentional about even just like where we recruit from, how we find people, the people we partner with, because ultimately we're trying our best to it's our way of form of service or an act of service to the tech industry that we're bringing people in who are very very competent. So you never ever want to feel like, oh, you're a diverse hire, because we want to know that you have that competitive advantage, and not like, oh, you're better than everyone else, but you have all the skills and have what it takes to actually succeed in the tech industry. So it's very refreshing that we know that we're arming people with knowledge and confidence that whenever they stand in front of a hiring manager, they're absolutely sure about their contributions. They're excited about what they want to do, and they're excited to just contribute towards like a great industry that wants to solve problems for people.
Hmm. Yeah, I think one of the most beautiful things about tech right now is just the amount of people that your product can reach out to and how many people can be affected. I think that just really speaks to how important diversity is, like you mentioned. Um,
Hmm.
and of
Yeah, I
course,
think
when you have
for
so many people you can reach. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, sorry, can no, 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 you go ahead.
I was just saying that I was just saying like when you're making products for so many different people, you need to have diverse voices for those people. So you're making the best product that you can.
Mhm. Yeah, we're super passionate just about like thought diversity in general. So really just out regardless of like race, gender, but also geographic location, academic background, etc. It's really about leveraging one another's lived perspectives and experiences to create amazing products, that do encompass and basically solve problems for the global audience. So yeah, I think thought diversity is something that Shifumi and I are both really passionate about and enthusiastic about, just in general, like as people. So yeah, that's why we're so passionate about collab, as well as that. Hey, it really encompasses a lot of the values that we have as people.
Hmm. And I think I think one of the biggest things when I got into tech was tech just seems like a big behemoth. I know not a lot of people are
Hmm.
really interested in contributing into it, but at the same time, they feel like it's too late for them to start, or everybody else is too advanced, or like they have this sort of notion in their head. So I was just wondering,
Hmm.
at CoLab, how do you go about getting people over this imposter syndrome? Because I think alongside the skills, that's also a big part of people getting into the tech industry.
Hmm. I think one of the things we do super well at CoLab is to make sure that our instructors and also our mentors, and obviously Shifumi and I, Those are just sort of the values that we espouse in general. I mean, again, if you take a look at like Shifumi's background, and how he built his own thing, and that was sort of how like he got into the tech industry, even though he's like an international student from abroad. And on my end, I don't know how to code. I don't have a CS degree. But just through like tons of applications, I was sort of able to make it in the space, as well as even our mentors who are very much non-traditional talent as well, who are here and just trying to act as like role models, sources of inspiration, but also just evidence that wow, okay, when you're actually in the tech industry, it there are so many different paths to success. And through the Co.Lab program, again, the reason why it's we're not giving you a specific project to do is because we want you to recognize that you have the skills and the capability to solve problems on your own. And ultimately, those are the
Hmm.
types of traits that are going to make you successful in tech. It's not about knowing how to code, right? It's about, hey, when you're facing a problem, do you know how to work with one another to solve the problem? And so I think that's what's so special about the program, where we really do try to make it as much of an empowering space as possible to make people realize that, hey, you're not alone. First of all, look at everyone else around you. Everyone else around you is like coming from a non-traditional background, and we're all working hard to get the job done. Right. Then you have these people who are
Right.
already in industry that are meant to, hey, you can be here someday too. You're going to be here someday soon. And I think this is consistent with like all of the messaging that we continue to do throughout the program. It's consistent with the content that we put out. So we actually have written 4 books at this point. The last 3 were about you belong in tech. So stories from non-traditional voices about how people broke into the space, right? And so yeah, all of these things that we do, I think we're yeah, just in general, like really trying to give people the opportunity to recognize that, yeah, like imposter syndrome, it's going to happen, but through gaining these experiences and building this network of people who are really rooting for you, that's how you'll get around it.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think yeah, that network is so important. Where you want to have a network of people who have been there, done that, and they can sort of guide you through there. And I think it sort of goes into the role of mentorship. And I love to get
Mhm.
your guys' thoughts. What do you think the role of mentorship is in breaking into any industry, or in this case specifically the tech industry?
Yeah, I think mentorship is like super important because it not only gives you that figure or that presence of someone who's been through it, but it also allows it demystifies some of the things that you might be going through. And as Helen said earlier, we were very intentional about the people who we bring. And I think the first step in trying to get into tech is even believing that you belong. So every mentor that we speak to or that we bring into our program, we take them through our process and try to understand where they've been because it's super helpful for us to know if they'll be a good fit. So we could have people who work at these top tech companies, but they might not necessarily be a good fit for us. So one of the things like our mentors will do, for example, we have a mentor who did a session and talked about all the interviews that she's bombed throughout her career. And even though that might be a very uncomfortable thing to talk about, our collaborators, which is what we call the people who go through our program, found that extremely valuable because they look at this VP of product and like, wow, you failed that many interviews or you've applied to like hundreds of jobs. And then for them, they would have applied to maybe only like 20 or 30 and they would have gotten just a few rejections. So it's for them to know that, okay, I just need to keep going. And yes, you would have some that wouldn't go well, but eventually it's going to get better. That's not up to you. Sorry, there's nothing wrong with you. Sorry. So I think that that's
Mhm.
why it's very important that we have people who have been through these experiences because it's not like what you see on LinkedIn. Because even everyone on LinkedIn who posts success stories, they've also had their fair share of difficulties. They just don't necessarily share that or are as transparent as some other folks. So we like to bring people in who are very transparent because they will tell you about the things that have worked for them. They'll tell you about the tips and tricks that has helped them, whether it's like just by being a woman or being a person of color. So I think it's very, very intentional that you have people who want to do that, because I think it makes it easier for folks who are trying to break in versus people who are gatekeepers and they only want tech to be a certain way and they wouldn't like give information. So it's not about have you
Right.
need people who want to give others access to the information that has helped them.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it's funny how you bring up the LinkedIn point. I think that's how I mentioned earlier about how tech sometimes feels like a big behemoth and it's really hard to break into. I think that exact same thing you mentioned. Like people are always posting the success stories, but they're not posting sort of the failures that they've been through along the way, and so that's sort of perpetuating that stigma that that tech is really this exclusive thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just found that interesting. Um, but yeah, so transitioning a little bit here, going into the startup side of things. I guess for you guys, what do you think the biggest thing that you've learned throughout this whole process has been like?
I think I'll go first. So, I mean, yeah, you've read Shifumi's stuff back in the day. You've known that he's always been around like entrepreneurship, starting his own thing. I definitely was in a completely different state of mind. So again, prior to starting up Co.Lab with Shifumi, I was working at Microsoft. I was a product manager there. And I sort of just thought that I was going to continue living or like just, living in Seattle, continuing to do that. I definitely did not think that I was going to do my own thing. So I do think that the last few months of being full time on Co.Lab has been really exciting for me, really eye opening to understand. Wow, there's so much to learn in the startup space. Because I really was just starting from scratch. Like I didn't even know what Y Combinator was about 5 months ago. I swear.
Hmm.
So I think that was super funny to me. Just sort of learning as we do it. Because one thing that I wanted to add on top of what Shifumi was saying about like and what you were saying about just the power of mentorship. I think yeah, we find it super valuable, but on top of that, we think what is actually more important is taking action. Right? So even when you have these mentors, when you have like, places where you can turn to, it's about taking action and sort of realizing that you have the power to take the steps that you need to go to the place that you're trying to go. And so that's why I find it so meta is that wow, okay, learning how to do a startup along with Shivumi involves building the startup with Shivumi. And so yeah, that's one thing that I feel like I've learned.
To add to that, like the biggest thing is how fast you have to move. I do think like yeah, startup move fast, and I don't realize that like we make decisions today, and tomorrow it's in action already, which is a good thing. But sometimes it can also feel overwhelming. That's like, oh wow, you're making all these changes, even though the changes are for the better. But I do think it's like I'm used to just like, oh yeah, if you want to make this change, it'll take like a month or a couple months, or it's like a next quarter thing. But I think the pace at which, and I think I'm grateful to have like a co-founder like Helen working closely with me um, on this journey, because it allows us to just like continue to make the changes for the better. Gives it makes us collaborate very, very closely on different things. So I do think it's a lot of learning, and I'm honestly super grateful. I'm having so much fun. I don't think I've had this much fun since working on anything ever. So yeah, I'm super excited about the direction that we're heading to.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great. That's great things to learn, and I think it's definitely like it is a challenge, but it seems like you guys are up for it, and it seems like you guys are handling it pretty well. So definitely
Well,
super
we have
interesting, and I
no
think
choice.
yeah, I guess you really don't. It's either you gotta adapt and keep going, or yep, pretty
Don't even
much.
finish the sentence.
So Um, I guess the last question I have to wrap up here is for people who are thinking about doing their own startup, their own venture. What do I know you guys just started. This is new, but given your young experience with the stuff, what advice do you think you have?
My first advice is get a very, very great co-founder. Trust me, I would not be able to do half, more than like, sorry, 90% of what I'm doing right now if I didn't have Helen with me. So having a which is why like I understand why like VCs don't want to invest in solo founders because this is hard. I can't imagine if one person just like is bearing everything. So first step is like find a very, 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 very good co-founder who just like is inspiring to work with and just like such a hard worker and just yeah, I can go on and on. So I'll say like that's like if you find that, I think that's sort of like the easiest thing or like the best thing that you can do. And I think it's like be willing to put in the work. I feel like obviously hustle culture is very glamorized and all that, and I don't want to be one of the people that perpetuates that and says, hey, work hard, grind, but it is a lot of work. I don't want to discount how hard it is, and so there will be times where it's like you have to make a lot of like personal sacrifices if you really want this to work out. So I would say just be willing to put in the work because you wouldn't be able to do the things that everyone else is doing because you have to focus on the startup. So I think once you just realize that, because obviously every startup is different, but I think those two things are universal, like a great co-founder and putting in the work and taking action. So I would say like that would be like the biggest advice. So if you have those two things down, um, yeah, I think then you're already set up for success.
Yeah, and I think my biggest advice is um yeah, having a community. Like it's sort of similar to having a good co-founder, like a team you can trust and speak to. But if you know other founders and if you have that network that you can tap into to chat with them when you're like, there's so much work to do, blah blah blah. I think it'll be really helpful. Just because of course you guys can share sort of learnings with one another, but you can also sort of commiserate with one another and just let off some steam. It's helpful.
Hmm. Yeah, I think yeah, the community aspect you mentioned there and the co-founder aspect Senfumi mentioned there is really important, and I think yeah, it's definitely great learnings for anyone who wants to do one. So thank you so much, guys, for coming onto the podcast. That's all the questions that I have for today. I really appreciate it, and I know we've had a little bit of technical difficulties, but I still think it was a great conversation to be had. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. This was super fun. Yeah, I had a great time. So thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, likewise.
All
This
right.
was fun.
Yeah, and yeah, guys. Till the next one. Take care. I hope everyone's staying safe. And yeah, take care. Bye.